Mail today is this Morphie Powerstation PD. External battery with USB-C power delivery 18 watt fast charge. It also has a secondary USB-A port at 12 watts. So the little USB-C port does charging and powering a device. There's a sticker over the back, which might be why I bought it discounted at the dollar of the day store, or the deal of the day store. In the box, 6,700 milliamp hour. I wonder what's underneath that sticker. Alright. This one comes with a USB to USB-A cable, and that one comes with a USB-C to USB-C cable. So that must be what they made the mistake of at the factory, and why they need a sticker, and maybe why I got it cheap. Alright, so it's smaller than the box makes me think it was going to be. I guess it's actual size on the box cover, but with the size of the box you'd kind of expect it to be a little bigger than this. But it is 6,700, so nice and small. I wonder if that's 2 cells in there or a pouch cell. I bet it's 2 18650 cells in there. Alright, so we have recharge and power things, and just power things. Comes from the factory with 2 dots worth of light, so I better charge it up. I have my Pixel 4 charger, USB-C charger there, drawing 0 watts when idle. Plug this in, lights turn on and start flashing at me. Well, they did flash at me. Oh, now it's flashing at me. One light's flashing, and my phone charger is taking 15 watts from the wall, so it's probably doing 15 watts out. So it's accepting power at 15 watts. I don't know if it's my phone charger or the actual device here that's limiting that, but it can charge at least at 15 watts. I've charged this guy all the way up. I've read the manual. So if you have something plugged into the USB-A port, it'll do a max of 2.4 amps at 5 volts. If you have something plugged into the USB-C port, it'll do an absolute maximum of 18 watts. It's USB power delivery. It basically does 5 volts at 3 amps for 15 watts, or you can negotiate up, if you're a USB power delivery device, to 9 volts at 2 amps, and so that's how you could get 18 watts out of this thing. Now, if you have something plugged into both, this guy drops down significantly. It's 1 amp, so it's basically 5 watts if this guy's going at full power. And basically, if you plug this into power, like you're charging the power station, you can get 12 watts out of this guy while you're plugged in and powering, and so it'll slowly charge this while powering your secondary device off of the A port. And most of this information I got off the back here, which has tiny little printing. It says battery's 3.6 volts, so it's probably LiPo cells. I'm interested in knowing what the max voltage is, and then I'm going to run it down and find out the min voltage on the cell, because I'm planning on reusing the electronics for something else. But to do that, we have to measure the battery directly, which means we have to open it, and so I have about a 50-50 chance of guessing which side of this thing pops off. I'm hoping it's symmetrical, and both halves of these are made exactly the same, so they can only do 1 injection molding, and that I can pop off either side directly. I'm hoping it's just clips and not glued. We're about to find out. I think I've figured out the best way to get into this guy. I just put the very end of it into my vise, twist the vise until it starts to creak and crack, and a nice little gap appears. If you cared about putting this back together, you'd probably be using a plastic tool instead of a metal one. But I don't particularly. But if you have the Morphie logo, I'm going to call that the top. Alright, I am going to call this the top because the piece on the other side has a little black ridge that actually holds the batteries in. And I don't know, it looks like the circuit board is actually screwed down to the back piece here. So I think if you're opening one of these, the correct way to do it is from the top side. And here you can see kind of the location of the clips, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So where the switch is, there's a clip missing, or I should say these three are closer together. At the bottom there's these two here, and at the top they have three smaller ones equally spaced there. Okay, let's see what the voltage of the battery is fully charged. I'd like to point out they do have in here a temperature sensor right there. So they have a temperature sensor between the two batteries, in addition to the power leads coming into the batteries. Huh. So as a reminder, anytime you're done measuring amps, you should put it back to volts. I don't know why this meter doesn't detect that. When I have this plugged in here, I'd want it to beep at me and say, "Hey, idiot, you're in the amp configuration and you're trying to measure volts." Nicer meters do that, I guess. For those of you wondering, an intermittent contact to these probes when your amp meter is accidentally in the amp setting does not have enough current to blow my 10 amp fuse in my meter, which is good. Alright, so 4.18. This will match perfectly the fully charged voltage of a Nissan Leaf cell, because that's absolute maximum 4.2. So what this means is that I can use this circuit to charge very, very slowly at 18 watts a single cell from a Nissan Leaf module, and it will not go above 4.2 volts, although I prefer 4.15 because that's a little bit better for the cell longevity. But it's safe to charge a half of a Nissan Leaf module with. That's what I assumed when I saw this 3.6 volts down here, is that the max would be close to that. Now, as for those of you wondering about the actual cells, they are purple cells, and I had them out at one point, or at least coming out. There we go. Alright, so 3350 milliamp hours. I'm sure this serial number will mean something to somebody. Alright, I will take these cells out and do a capacity test on them, just to see if they actually live up to the 3350 milliamp hour rating printed on the side of them. But first I'm going to discharge them all the way, or discharge the entire unit all the way, to see what the cutoff voltage is at the lower end. Okay, to discharge this guy, I have a USB power meter and a tablet. So, let's see if I can arrange this so it's visible. Alright, so it's not drawing too much. It's 0.8 amps because it's 97% charged to begin with, but it's 5 volts and 0.82, 0.9 amps, and it's going to keep account of the capacity we go through here as well if I put it in that mode. There we go, volt, amp, capacity. So there's volts, amps, and currently the capacity is 0. So let's hit this thing on play. And we're going to do autoplay on. And let that thing run. So for those of you who are curious, 3.6 volts internally equates to 2 lights, half charged. Okay, we are 3.2 amps delivered, and the cell voltage is at 3.35. And we are now down to a single dot on the fuel meter. Alright, we're at 3 volts, 3.1 volts, 3.6 amps delivered. Still 1 dot. Alright, so this thing shut off with the cells at 3.14 volts. So that's pretty much perfect for the Nissan Leaf cell, or a half of a Nissan Leaf module. So I'm going to remove the temperature sensor from the cells, and I'm going to unsolder the cells, and we will capacity test the cells separately to get an idea of how much actual capacity these cells have in them, separately outside of this guy. I'm going to be using this BT C3100 version 2.2 battery intelligent charger and tester for capacity testing these guys. They show, you know, individual 4 slots here. I'm actually going to see if I can put one of these in vertically in a single slot and just capacity test the bank of both of them at the same time, because I expect these cells to be pretty well matched. Alright, been several hours, but we've charged this guy up to 4.18, so I'm going to be doing a discharge test on it next. Alright, took 6 hours, 17 minutes to discharge, and it discharged it down to 3.15, 3.14, basically the same as the power bank. And we have 6.2 amp hours, which is close enough to the rated capacity of these cells and the power bank to say that it probably was at the rated capacity when it was manufactured. And any loss we see here is just due to age of the cells. Alright, to summarize, these cells tested at about 6 amps, just a little north of 6 amps, and given the fact that this is old stock that I bought, I suspect that these 3350 milliamp ratings is perfectly accurate when they were manufactured. So, good cells. This guy here will charge or discharge at 18 watts. And it charges the cells up to 4.18 volts and discharges down to about 3.14 volts. So this will be a good match for my Nissan Leaf cells, but as a power bank, it's perfectly acceptable if you need something that is USB-C charged and goes up to 18 watts.